Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I'm your host as usual, and obviously welcome back to the show. Today's episode 118 of the show, and before we get started, we're going to do a bit of house cleaning real quick because, well, we always like doing house cleaning, and you guys always enjoy it, and it's also my show, so I can always do whatever I want, but I know somebody's going to get on my grill about that. I know. I'm just yanking your chain, bro. But I do want to say thank you guys for coming back and listening to today's episode. It really means a lot to me that you guys keep coming back and listening to these episodes. You keep downloading them. You keep sharing them. Whether you're listening to these podcasts on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you like to listen to your podcast, or you're watching it on YouTube, because I know a lot of you like watching the YouTube versions, mainly because it's an easier way for you guys to comment. It's an easier way for you guys to interact with me, to, let me know what you guys think about these topics. And if you do, a lot of people have told me that they just enjoy watching my facial reactions or how I express myself with my emotions in regards to the video versions. It just makes it a little bit easier because, yes, I get it. It's easy to listen to someone's voice. You can tell someone's reaction or emotions in their voice as well. But it kind of adds just another level of immersion when you actually get to see and interact with them. And that's why I like doing the video version. So for everyone that's watching on YouTube, thank you guys for coming back and watching. It really means a lot to me. And for the listeners that are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to listen to your podcast, thank you guys for coming back and listening. It really means a lot to me. I also want to say thank you guys for over 1,600 total downloads. It really, really means a lot to me that you guys keep downloading these episodes. You keep sharing them. And I hope that we continue to do this because, hopefully I want to hit 2,000 by the end of the year. And I think that'd be really cool if we can. Aside from that, I also want to thank the Patreon backers for continuing to be awesome. You guys keep supporting me. Obviously, if you want to become a Patreon backer, you can obviously click the link down below and you can become a Patreon backer. It's only $2 a month and you get early access to new episodes. Overall, I'd say in time, we're going to be making more content for the Patreon backers and doing more exclusive stuff for them. So if you want to become a Patreon backer, cool. And then in time, you can get access to cooler content later down the line once we start adding more benefits to the Patreon backers. But aside from that, we do have an interesting topic to talk about today. And I know I said it before that I didn't want to talk about this again, but I decided that I wanted to because it's getting really annoying looking at the situation. And I specifically don't have any notes for this. This is more of another rant. However, it does have 3 talking points that I want to highlight and focus on throughout this episode. And I hope that you guys would bear with me to listen and, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below if you agree with a lot of the things going on, because we're going to be talking about the Xbox Series X and the PS5. And specifically, we're going to be talking about the ideas of double standards. We're going to be talking about the ideas of hypocrisy. And we're going to be talking about the big, I'd say, downplay going on right now, because it's a lot of crap going on right now. And I get it. After the Xbox July showcase, which we did an episode about it last week, so you guys can, go up here and you'll see a link to it. But after the July showcase, a lot of people were either bashing Microsoft or, just joyriding Sony, or you had the PC elitists just bullying both of the consoles and saying this is not next gen, this is a joke. And it's an interesting debate because when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, everybody in the situation is wrong. And it's very interesting to watch. Let me explain why. So after the July showcase, a lot of people were disappointed in Microsoft because they're like, oh, Microsoft again, they ruined everything. They can't seem to do anything right. Blah, 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 blah. And I've even said it, and I said it in last week's episode too, that I thought the Microsoft event or the Xbox July showcase was okay. Like, I think it was interesting that Microsoft now expanded their first party roster and had such a diverse lineup now that it's not so heavily reliant on, Forza, Gears, Halo, but now it's actually expanded into a much bigger roster that it's become what people wanted, because that's what people wanted. They asked Microsoft to make a bigger roster of first party games and not just rely on those 3 IPs. And once they do, like, actually give people what they asked for, and then the same people complain. And it's just interesting in my opinion, because this is such a double standard, especially after the PlayStation showcase, where I thought, yes, this was a good showcase. Like, its main highlight was showing the PS5. That was the main highlight. And I think it's not fair to compare the two events, mainly because one of them actually involves showing off the console. And that's what gives it a little bit more significance. And at the same time, yes, people complain about gameplay. This is an example of double standards because Sony did not show so much gameplay. They didn't. Like, when somebody actually ran the numbers, they showed that the PS5 event showed about 6 minutes and 50 seconds of gameplay, while the Xbox event showed about 9 minutes and about 30 seconds of gameplay. So the Xbox event showed more gameplay, but at the same time, if you look at the games, yes, Microsoft has shown a far larger quality, or I wouldn't say quality, but a number of new IPs that are very interesting. They have. Like, I get it. Not every new IP is for everybody. That's perfectly fine. It's not supposed to be for everybody. But you can't down Microsoft because of this, because they gave you what you wanted. You wanted more IPs. If you think about it, this is an interesting talking point that somebody noted. They're like, Microsoft now has 2 RPGs coming for the next generation. They have Avowed, which is the Obsidian RPG that Obsidian's making, and then Fabled. That's 2 whole new RPGs coming to the Xbox console. And a lot of people don't seem to be realizing this, that this is a big deal. Like, Microsoft is now giving you 2 brand new RPGs. Granted, let's see how they turn out, but, fingers crossed they're going to be great. And it's interesting because people complain about the gameplay, and yet the only gameplay that Sony really showed at their event was Ratchet and Clank, and that's it. Everything else was a cinematic trailer. And Halo showed more gameplay than Ratchet and Clank. So there's that. But we also talk about Halo, which I don't want to specifically talk about Halo right now. I have that saved for Friday's episode, where we're going to talk about Halo Infinite specifically, because it does deserve its own video, because it is an interesting situation going on. But I will say that, yes, I was happy with what I saw with Halo Infinite. Do I believe that the graphics were a bit rough? Yes, I'm going to be honest with you. Those graphics were a bit rough. But on a technical standpoint and a gameplay standpoint, it looked amazing. It was great. And I'm excited to see how this turns out, because like I said, just a little bit of tweaks. And I know some people say, hey, stop making excuses. And I'm like, well, it's not making excuses. That's just excuses. What it's really doing is like, hey, let's be mindful. This was an old build of the game. And like I said, this will all be talked about in Friday's episode. So please come back and listen to that. It really, really mean it. You guys should come back and listen to that one, because we're going to be diving into the Halo Infinite stuff, because it's a lot of stuff. Like, it's a lot. But it is the big talking point, that this is an example of how people are holding Microsoft to like, they're just basically dogging Microsoft, and they're just like, oh, Microsoft can't do anything right, even though they make more. They've obviously shown more exclusive games than the PlayStation event has. And this isn't me like batting for Microsoft. This is just being objective fact, is there's a more diverse lineup of games that Microsoft has to offer than Sony does this time around. It's just the reality. They do. Granted, the quality of those games will be important to see, and that's why I'm saying, let's focus on the quality of these games. But in terms of quantity, yes, Microsoft has a bigger, roster, a more diverse roster of games. And it's not even all the studios. We haven't seen all the studios show their games yet. We haven't. There's still other Microsoft studios that still have yet to show off the games they're working on. But I also want to say this, because this actually leads into the second point, where we're talking about double standards, where nobody dogs Sony for the lack of gameplay in their event. Even though, yes, one game showed it, Ratchet and Clank. But aside from that, nobody seemed to really care. Like, and I get it, yes. It's different when you see a trailer for Horizon Zero Dawn and you see a trailer for, the Square Enix game. Like, it's different when you see trailers for those games. But you can't dog Microsoft for showing the same stuff. Like, you get what I mean? Is like, it's weird to dog them for it when, like, the other, like, the company that you're trying to defend, Sony, did the same thing, and yet you didn't bat an eye. And this is why I say comparing these two events is very difficult. To compare these two events, it's very, very difficult. The reason I say it's difficult is, like I said, one of them showed the new console. The other one was just primarily focused on games. And this is something we all need to realize, guys. Come on, like, we have to realize this at this point. Like, this is just, like I said, tribalism. It's very annoying to watch tribalism take place because, like, it's kind of frustrating because everybody wins in the end. When there's competition, there's healthy competition, the consumers win. We don't want the companies to win. We want the consumers to win because they're the ones that are actually paying the companies money. And when you have good, healthy competition between the two of the, like, main competition, when you have competition going on, the consumer wins in the end because we end up getting the best product possible. But when you're constantly dogging one of them and just saying that they can't do anything right, that's not, first of all, that's not accurate. Second, it's not helpful. It doesn't provide anything. Like, yes, Microsoft's approach to this generation is an interesting one. That's just the reality, as is. There's no other way around it. That yes, Microsoft is not focusing on the console this time around. Yes, that doesn't mean that they're not making a good console and that they're not putting games on it. Yes, they are. But you also have to keep in mind that they're primarily focused on services. They're primarily focusing on being prosumer, like being, focusing on the consumer, making the consumer have all that they need to do what they want to do and make it very friendly, enticing. And there's many examples of this to be shown. Like I said, the backwards compatibility is far better. I'm just being honest. PlayStation people have, like, anybody that plays the PlayStation has said that they rather have the Microsoft's approach to backwards compatibility because it's so much better. It just objectively is. And when you think of things like, Game Pass, a lot of people don't seem to realize that Xbox Game Pass, you may not care about it, but it's still considered the best deal in gaming. Like, there's a reason why people say that, because it is. The fact that there's so much value being provided with Game Pass and that it keeps growing in subscription, like, that people keep joining it every day is ridiculous because it just, like, I get why Microsoft wasn't afraid to say that it basically is the Netflix of gaming because it just has so much value and Sony has nothing to compete with it. PSN now cannot compete with Game Pass. Game Pass is just way, way ahead. And this is Microsoft playing the long game. Microsoft, showing that they want to play the long game, that they're not going to hold back, that they want this to go the distance. And Microsoft is primarily focusing on services. And this is something that we just have to be real with ourselves about because that's the direction that this is going. It's services. And some people may not like that. Sony is sticking to the traditional method of focusing on consoles, focusing on the console. That's what matters. And this is something that a lot of people need to realize is you can't try to compare these two this time around because a lot of people are honestly saying this could be the end of the console wars. Not because somebody wins, but because somebody decided this is stupid. Like, and then you have to look at the other side of the spectrum with the PC gamers and how they tie into this because these guys are even crazier. Like, and granted, I'm one of them, but the PC elitists are obviously just poking fun at the generator. They're like, look, you guys are crazy to think that these consoles are powerful. You guys are ridiculous for thinking these consoles can even come close to a 2080 Ti in performance. And it's very interesting because people complain. Like, Halo Infinite was running at 4K 60. Like, solid 4K 60 the entire time. And it's interesting because somebody even pointed this out, that a 2080 Ti still can't run every game at 4K 60. There's some games that just can't be run at 4K 60. And that's not because the 2080 Ti isn't powerful, that's because of an optimization problem. And when you take into account all the optimizations that'll be done, because like I said, gaming is most optimized for consoles. That's just the reality. It is. It's more optimized for consoles. When you take into account all the optimizations that will be done and the power that these consoles have, yes, they will be able to perform far better than PCs in their price range. That's just the objective truth. Granted, like I said, that doesn't mean that PCs still won't get crazier FPSs and stuff like that. No, that they will happen. Like, yes, even though these are using big Navi or RDNA 2 GPUs in both consoles, it's still not all of RDNA 2. It's a portion of it. So it's still powerful, but it's not the full big deal, big Navi. It's not. It's only a portion of it. And it's going to be interesting, And I'm excited to see how this plays out. And watching the PC elitists complain because they're like, oh, look, you guys can't even get games running at 4K 60. Ha 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 ha. And I see videos of PC elitists like, guys, why are you celebrating? These events were trash. Like, they didn't even show any gameplay. And then I think it just makes it even worse. To be honest, it makes it a little bit worse when you watch people talk about how neither event truly showed gameplay, or how the PlayStation event didn't show gameplay, even though Ratchet and Clank had gameplay. And it's not like the original section where they actually showed like the cinematic cutscenes. Like, they actually like showed a section of the game actually running. And we even talked about it, like me and Gilberto, while we were watching it, we talked about it, how it looked very choppy, but they did show actual gameplay. Like, they showed the game running. And that's what led to the 6 minutes of gameplay, because they showed that's what they were showing. Obviously, the Microsoft event was focused on Halo being the gameplay demonstration, so we got to see Halo. But like I said, I think it's interesting to watch the PC elitists complain. These two consoles are extremely powerful in their own rights. Granted, both have different benefits. Microsoft is focusing on the services this time around. They're focusing on being prosumer. They're focusing on being for the consumer. Sony is just focusing on the traditional console method, like make a console, make exclusives, move on. That's all Sony's focused on right now. And we're going to see what works, because everybody has their own opinion about it. Am I excited to see what Microsoft has this generation? Absolutely, because there's still a lot on the table that is yet to be shown off. And there's still a lot of prospects. Like Halo Infinite, in my opinion, could be one of the best Halos we've had in a while, because the gameplay looks solid. It looks great. Just touch up the visuals a little bit. And it obviously running great because it's running 4K 60 with no issues. So, there's that. And we're actually going to talk, like I said, more about the Halo Infinite situation on Friday. But like I said, both these consoles offer something unique. And yes, I'm just going to be honest. Don't expect a lot of the bangers right off the bat. Like, yes, I get it. The PS5 is launching with Spider-Man. It's only going to be a 5 to 10 hour game, so I'm not too excited about it. Obviously, the Xbox is launching with Halo, and we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of the big, banger games aren't going to come out until like 2 to 3 years after the console's launch. Why do you think they showed trailers for Fabled or Avowed, or they showed for Psychonauts, or Horizon Zero Dawn 2, or Demon Souls, or they showed all these trailers for games, Hellblade 2. Like, there's so many trailers that have been shown for games, and they just can't show gameplay because they're not ready. They need more time, because these are such big games. They're such big product games that they need time. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward. But I do not think that it is fair to say that these consoles are very underwhelming, because they're not. Is it going to be interesting to see what they're priced? Absolutely they are. And this is going to be, like I said, this generation will be decided on price. Like, the console wars, in my opinion, I think they're going to die. That's just my opinion, is I think the console wars are going to die this generation, because this is where you're going to start seeing a split in direction. Sony is sticking to the traditional path, while Microsoft is focusing on services. I know a lot of people can argue saying that they don't agree with Microsoft's approach, But it has shown that it works because companies like Apple are doing it. Yes, they're still making hardware, but they're also making really good services to go with that hardware, and then making the hardware affordable so that you can use their services, so you can jump into the ecosystem. That's what Microsoft is doing. They're making good hardware, but at the same time, they're also focusing on their services so that you can be enticed to get those services with that hardware. Because yes, you can make a lot of money by selling consoles up front, but you also make a lot more money by charging them services over time, because that money that you say, the money that you earned from the upfront purchase will get I wouldn't say overturned, but it'll be exceeded after a certain amount of time. But it's focusing on playing the long game. And that's something people have to realize with Microsoft. They're playing the long game here, and we're going to see how this turns out. But I do not agree with all the hypocrisy and double standards being held by the gaming community right now, or game enthusiasts, holding towards that the PlayStation event was better because it showed gameplay, even though they really didn't show that much gameplay. And then when you actually compare the numbers, Microsoft showed more gameplay. And the fact that there's so much double standards in regards to people saying that Microsoft can't expand their roster, and then once they expanded their roster and diversity of their game library, people get mad. They're like, no one cares about these things. Like, no one cares about these games. And I'm like, what do you guys want? You know, like, you guys want more games. You want new IPs. They give you new IPs. They give you new games. And yet you guys still complain. Like, it's mind-boggling to me, but this is an eye-opener. And trust me, it's not just in the console wars where we see examples of this. We see stuff like this in cameras. Like, obviously Sony came out with the A7S III, and people seem to really like the camera. Now they're comparing it to the Canon R5 and R6, and that's a whole different can of worms. But I want you guys to be more mindful of these things. Like, come on, guys. Like, let's be more mindful of not trying to be double standard hypocrites, because this is not going to help. Like, we want to win as consumers. Like, we should strive for these companies to compete with each other. But in the end, we should be winning, because their competition will lead to us getting the better product. Push for healthy competition. Don't just belittle one company and then praise another, even though the other one is doing the exact same crap as this one. So it's like, what do you expect, guys? Like, you got one company doing this, the other company's doing the same thing, except one gets praised and the other one gets dogged. Like, come on, guys. And I would say the same thing if Xbox was dogging PlayStation. You know, I would do the exact same thing. This isn't just me saying this because PlayStation is doing it to Xbox, or, you know, people are praising Sony and then bashing Microsoft, because I would do it even if the roles were reversed. That's just being objective. That's being honest. And that's something that we need to do more of. And I hope that you guys learn something from this and be mindful of this kind of situation, because it's very annoying. It's like petty. It doesn't help. This doesn't make things better. We're wasting our time. And for the PC elitists, guys, we get it. PC is better. But you should not dog or underestimate these consoles, because they're very powerful. They're going to be very powerful. And we're already seeing examples that these things are going to be great. And they're going to provide great value. That's something you can't get from PC, because like I said, PC gaming is not on top anymore. The consoles are what's going to push PC gaming even further, because the fact that now games are going to be developed for SSDs instead of hard drives now. This is pushing the industry forward. This is healthy. This leads to better products that benefit everybody. So stop bashing one thing and praising your stuff, because you're trying to win, dummy. You want them to succeed so that everybody wins. You know, that's the whole point. PC gamers should want the consoles to do well, because it will benefit them, because it will push the industry forward and it'll push technology forward. This is what wins. You win in the end, dummy. So, like, support them. Help them go forward. Help support them. Don't just dog them and say, hey, you're stupid if you buy. Like, you know what I mean? That doesn't do anything. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I hope it was helpful in that sense. That's why I said is that I didn't really have a script for this one. I just wanted to talk about those 3 talking points because they were on my mind for a while now. And I just wanted to keep it real with y'all. I didn't want to like be fake or, you know, like I didn't want to do something that would make me seem disingenuous and just try to hype up the Xbox or hype up the PlayStation or just, go all in with PC. I wanted to be honest and objective with y'all and call out these 3 points that I find very problematic in this entire situation. And I hope you guys play your part and be mindful of this stuff. Do some self-reflection, ask questions of yourself. And we're going to end up winning in the end as consumers because, like I said, the consumer should win in the end. So we should all be pushing for healthy competition and not just being hypocrites and holding double standards. And at the same time, we should also be dogging one another because that doesn't help. We're all gamers in the end, guys. It's what matters at the end of the day, But I thank you guys for your time. I love you guys to death. Thank you guys for coming back and listening. It really, really means a lot to me. If you guys are watching on YouTube, please, leave a like, leave a dislike, leave a comment down below how you felt about this topic. How do you feel about this entire situation if you've been keeping up with it? Also, click the subscribe button, click the bell icon so you guys can get notified when these episodes go live. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to, please, let me know what you guys think. Leave a review of the show. Let me know and let everyone else know what do you think about the show. But until then, guys, I love you guys to death. I will see you guys Friday because, like I said, on Friday we're talking about Halo Infinite. But I love you guys to death. Please continue to be safe, and I'll see you guys on Friday. Bye, guys. Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.